I never wanted to share this story, but I need to warn others. My name's Sarah Mitchell, and 6 months ago, my husband Mark and I bought what we thought was our dream home in suburban Connecticut. It was a beautiful colonial-style house built in 1993, nothing ancient or typically haunted house about it. 4 bedrooms, pristine hardwood floors, and a massive kitchen that sold me the moment I saw it. The price was surprisingly reasonable for the area, but we figured we'd just gotten lucky. The previous owners seemed normal enough, an elderly couple moving to Florida for retirement. They'd kept the place in perfect condition, and the inspection came back clean. Everything about the sale was completely normal. That's what makes what happened next so much worse. The first week was perfect. We painted the walls, arranged our furniture, and started making the place our own. Then the sounds started. At first, it was just little things. The sound of footsteps upstairs when we were both downstairs, doors closing by themselves, the garage door opening in the middle of the night. We blamed it on the house settling or faulty wiring. Normal explanations for normal sounds. But then our things started moving. Not dramatically. We'd just find stuff in slightly wrong places. My coffee mug would be 2 inches to the left of where I'd left it. Mark's keys would be on the other side of the counter. Small things that made us question our sanity. The worst part was the basement. God, that basement. It was fully finished, with nice carpeting and recessed lighting, but something about it felt wrong. The air was always cold down there, no matter how high we set the thermostat. And there was this smell. Not all the time, but sometimes, like old meat and something metallic. One night, I went down to grab some paper towels we'd stored there. As I reached for the light switch, I heard something that still haunts me. A child's laugh. We don't have kids. We didn't even have a TV down there. But I heard it clear as day, followed by what sounded like someone whispering, "Mommy's here." I ran upstairs and told Mark. He didn't believe me at first, but then it happened to him too. He was doing laundry when he heard someone behind him say, "Can I help?" in a child's voice. He spun around, but nobody was there. Just the washing machine running and that cold, heavy air. We started researching the house's history. The elderly couple had lived there for 15 years. Before them, it was a young family, parents and 2 kids. They'd moved out suddenly, but nobody knew why. Before that, nothing unusual. No deaths, no tragedies, nothing that would explain what was happening. Then came the night that changed everything. We were sleeping when our bedroom door slammed open. The sound jolted us awake, and there, in the doorway, was a wet footprint, a child's footprint, dripping on our hardwood floor. As we watched, another appeared, then another. They were walking toward our bed. Mark grabbed his phone to record it. The footprints kept coming, getting closer and closer. In the video, which I've watched 100 times, you can clearly see them appearing one by one. Then the temperature dropped so fast our windows frosted over. That's when we heard the giggling. It wasn't just one child's laugh this time. It was many, coming from all around us. The footprints stopped at the foot of our bed, and then... God, I can barely type this. We saw the mattress depressed like someone was sitting on it. Small handprints appeared in the frost on our windows, dozens of them, all at once. We ran, didn't even pack a bag, just grabbed our phones and car keys and got out. Spent the night in a hotel, trying to convince ourselves we were having a shared hallucination or something. The next day, we called a local paranormal investigator. I know how that sounds, but we were desperate. She came to the house with all her equipment. Everything seemed normal at first, until she went down to the basement. Her EMF meter went crazy, and her thermal camera showed something that made her drop it. The clear outline of 3 small children standing in a corner, holding hands. She asked us if we knew about the sealed well. We didn't. Turns out, there used to be a well in the basement, predating the house. When they built the house, they just covered it up with concrete and carpet. The investigator suggested we look into any disappearances in the area from before the house was built. We did. 3 children had gone missing in 1988, 5 years before our house was built. they were never found. We're in the process of selling the house now. We've disclosed everything to potential buyers, which is why it's been on the market for months. Sometimes I drive by, and I always see children's toys in the yard, even though no one lives there. The weird thing is, they're never there when I look again. Last week, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a child's drawing, 3 stick figures holding hands, standing next to what looked like a well. On the back, in crayon, it said, "We miss you, Mommy." I'm not a mother. I've never been a mother. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear those children laughing. And sometimes, when I'm about to fall asleep, I feel small, cold hands holding mine. My name is Michael Reeves, and what happened in that house still gives me nightmares. After my wife passed away last year, I couldn't stand living in our old place anymore. Every room held too many memories. So when I found this amazing deal on a newly renovated house in the suburbs of Seattle, I thought it was exactly what I needed. 3 bedrooms, modern kitchen, finished basement, seemed perfect for a fresh start. The real estate agent mentioned the house had been empty for 2 years after a major renovation. Some developer had bought it cheap, fixed it up, and was now selling it at a surprisingly reasonable price. Should have known something was off about that, but grief does funny things to your judgment. Everything started normally enough. I moved in during summer, spent the first few weeks painting and setting up my home office. The first strange thing I noticed was the temperature. No matter how high I set the thermostat, the master bedroom stayed freezing cold. The HVAC guy couldn't find anything wrong with the system. Then I started hearing drilling sounds. They always came from inside the walls, but only at 3:27 a.m. Exactly 3:27 a.m., every single night. It sounded like someone was drilling through the drywall, moving from room to room. But when I checked in the morning, the walls were always perfect. No holes, no marks, nothing. My next-door neighbor, Tom, finally told me what happened to the previous owners. The husband had been a contractor who bought old houses, renovated them, and flipped them for profit. But this house, something about it changed him. He became obsessed with the walls, started tearing them open, claiming he could hear people trapped inside. His wife tried to get him help, but one day she came home and found him gone. Just vanished, leaving all the walls torn open. Each wall had the same thing written inside. "They're still drilling." I should have left right then. But I didn't believe in ghost stories. I was a former construction manager myself. I knew houses made weird noises. But then I found the blueprints in the basement. They were the original plans from when the house was built in 1963. But these weren't normal blueprints. The walls were all marked with strange symbols, and there were rooms shown that didn't exist, or shouldn't have existed. According to these plans, there was a whole other house hidden inside the walls of my house. The night I found those blueprints, the drilling was louder than ever. But this time, I heard something else. Voices, calling my name from inside the walls. They knew things they couldn't possibly know. They talked about Sarah, my late wife, about the fight we had the night before her accident, about things I'd never told anyone. I took a sledgehammer to the living room wall. What I found behind it still haunts me. There was another wall, older, made of different materials. And between the walls were tools, dozens of them. Some looked decades old, all worn down like they'd been used over and over. And scratched into that older wall were hundreds of messages in different handwritings. "Keep drilling. They're almost here. The walls are alive." That's when I noticed the scratches weren't just words, they were dates. Dates going back to 1963 when the house was built. Each date matched the disappearance of a previous owner. All contractors or construction workers. All gone without a trace. I ran outside and called the police. When they arrived, they found no extra walls, no tools, no messages. Just the normal insulation and pipes. They thought I was having a breakdown from grief. But here's the thing. I've checked the records. Since 1963, 14 people who worked in construction have owned that house. Every single one disappeared, and every time, the house was renovated before being sold again. I moved out the next day. Didn't even pack, just left everything behind. The house sold again last month, to another contractor. I tried to warn him, but he didn't believe me. Yesterday, I drove by and saw him in the window, staring at the wall with a power drill in his hand. The drilling sounds don't stop anymore. I hear them every night at 3:27 a.m., even in my new apartment 10 miles away. And sometimes, when I'm falling asleep, I hear voices in my walls whispering, "Keep drilling, Michael. You're almost here." They found the new owner's drill this morning, embedded in one of the walls, but they haven't found him, just like all the others. And the house? It's already being renovated for the next owner. The weirdest part? I checked those original blueprints before I left. The architect's name at the bottom caught my eye. Thomas Reeves, my grandfather, the one who disappeared in 1963, 2 days after the house was finished. My name is David Turner, and 6 months ago, my best friend James and I bought what we thought was an incredible investment property in suburban Massachusetts. We'd known each other since college, both worked in real estate development, and had done a few successful flips before. But this house, this one was different. The property was a foreclosure, a 4,000 square foot McMansion built in 2008 that some banker had lost in the financial crisis. It had been sitting empty for almost a year, and the bank was practically giving it away. James and I pooled our savings and jumped on it. Our plan was simple: live in it while we renovated, then sell it for a hefty profit. The first red flag showed up during our initial walkthrough with our contractor, Mike. He was checking the electrical panel in the basement when he noticed something odd. There were way too many circuits for a house this size, and some weren't labeled. He also found several junction boxes that weren't on any plans, hidden behind false walls. "Someone's done some weird work here," Mike said. "Amateur stuff, but recent, like they were trying to power something big." We figured the previous owner had maybe set up a grow room or mining rig. Nothing too sinister. The wiring would need to be redone anyway. The real problem started when we began demolition. The previous owner had built false walls in several rooms, creating hidden spaces that made no sense. In one of these spaces, we found dozens of hard drives, all fried beyond repair. In another, we discovered a wall of monitors, their screens shattered. But the creepiest find came when we were redoing the master bathroom. Behind the massive vanity mirror, we found a two-way glass and a small room with a chair bolted to the floor. The room had perfect sight lines to the shower and toilet. On the chair's armrest was a notebook filled with dates, times, and detailed observations about previous occupants' daily routines. James wanted to call the police right away, but I convinced him to wait. A police investigation would kill our renovation timeline and probably tank the property value. We agreed to document everything and keep working. That's when the emails started. First to James, then to me. Anonymous messages with photos of us working on the house, taken from odd angles inside the walls. Whoever was sending them knew things about us. Personal things, like conversations we'd had in private. They knew about James's gambling debts from college. They knew about my brother's stint in rehab. The final straw came when Mike found a USB drive hidden in the HVAC ductwork. It contained hundreds of videos, surveillance footage from every room in the house, dating back to when it was first built. The previous owner had wired the entire place with hidden cameras, but that wasn't the worst part. The videos showed people living their lives, unaware they were being watched. Families with kids, young couples, renters, all recorded without their knowledge. But in the background of some videos, you could see someone moving inside the walls. Someone who had built a network of crawl spaces throughout the house, who had been living there the whole time, watching. We finally called the police. They found evidence that someone had been living in the walls for years. Food wrappers, bottles, makeshift sleeping areas. They also found detailed notebooks about every occupant since 2008, including us. The level of detail was terrifying. What time we showered, what we ate, who we called, what we said in our sleep. The previous owner, we learned, was a former IT security specialist named Robert Nash. He'd designed corporate surveillance systems before having some kind of breakdown. He'd bought the house in 2008, spent 2 years modifying it, then deliberately let it go into foreclosure, while never actually leaving. They never caught him. The police think he's still out there, probably doing the same thing to another house, another family. Sometimes I wonder how many other houses he's modified, how many other people he's watching right now. James and I sold the house at a loss after fully disclosing everything. Surprisingly, a young couple bought it anyway, saying they'd gut it completely. Last week, James got an email from an anonymous account. It was a recent photo of the new owners in their kitchen, taken from inside a wall. The caption read, "They think they found all the cameras. They haven't even found half of them." We tried warning them, but they blocked our numbers, thinking we were just bitter about the sale. Yesterday, I drove by the house and saw someone in a workman's uniform entering through the garage. The new owners are at work during the day, but according to the security company, no contractors are scheduled this week. The police say they'll check it out, but we all know they'll be too late. Robert Nash has already moved back into his walls, and he's starting his notebooks all over again.